Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to do a little makeup video with you guys and just kind of like chit chat with you. Definitely leading up to the days of Christmas were a little bit more interesting, a little scary. There was some crying, we had some panic attacks, we had some scares, we had trips, you know, it was a little bit of everything. I'm gonna start with my primer. I do like using this Poreless Putty Primer. This is the e.l.f. one. It's like, I'm pretty sure you guys tried this before. It's supposed to be a dupe for the Tasha Poreless Primer one. It kind of looks the same. So one tip that I saw on TikTok for this primer is if you do have large pores, is you kind of want to pat it in and swipe up. So in my last video that I uploaded with my sister making pizza, that video we filmed it towards the beginning of December, and in that video I did mention something about like my mom going down to Mexico. So it's been a week since our mother left to Mexico. She only called us one time. She was gonna go there for a whole month, and it was gonna be her, and then 2 weeks later, once my sister got out of school, it was gonna be my dad and my sister. Jessica, you're excited that you're leaving to Mexico?
No.
And then the only ones who were gonna stay here were gonna be me and my brother, and we were technically going to be celebrating Christmas and New Year's by ourselves. Obviously, that didn't happen. Okay, so I'm just gonna be going back and forth with my tips and my stories. I do wanna do a dramatic eye because I am so over the basic brown eyes, which I'm not gonna lie, I do like it. That's like my go-to my go-to makeup. But one of the tips that I uploaded on my shorts is tape. So if you have a struggle doing your eye and you just have a hard time doing eyeliner, use some tape. But when you use it, make sure you like rub it on your hand first to take away like most of the stickiness, and then just go in there and line it up as best as you can. I'm gonna use the Naughty palette from Huda Beauty. I want to give you guys a little bit of a backstory. So where my parents went to Mexico is technically my mom's hometown. My mom has a lot of brothers and a lot of sisters, 3 sisters I believe, and like 5 brothers, so they're a big family. Her youngest brother is living in Mexico, and he kind of became very aggressive towards his mom, which is my grandma. He got married, and then maybe like a year, 2 years later after he got married, he just became very aggressive, very hateful. He pretty much kicked my grandma out of his house because maybe they were having problems with his wife, and his wife was like, I don't want her here. Point is, he kicked her out. When my grandpa was alive, he did tell them that he was gonna take their house down and build them a new one. So he built his house where my grandparents used to live, and he told, you know, he said, this is gonna be your guys' home and I'm building this house for you guys. But then he ends up getting married. My grandpa dies. Actually, no, my grandpa dies. Then he gets married. A year after that, he ends up kicking my grandma out, and that's kind of where the drama started. And then he pretty much declared himself, you know, king of all the lands that my grandpa had left, and my mom and like all their brothers were telling him like, that's not your land, it's literally your, like, everything goes down to my grandma. So the thing is that my grandpa didn't have a set will on, you know, on whatever belonged to whoever, whatever. They weren't really keeping that up in Mexico, like my uncles and my mom. They were kind of just like, so my grandpa owns all this land, and my grandpa told my mom, hey, you can build a house here. And my mom built a house here. And then, you know, my uncle, we'll call him Elf, because that's literally what I saw. He's the cranky one who got married and, you know, kicked my grandma out. This is, you know, we're talking about Elf. So he built his house. I have other uncles who also built their house in my grandpa's land. So they own the house technically because they built it. It was their money. But legally, the land technically, and everything in the land technically belongs to the land owner, which is my grandpa. But when he died, turns into my grandma. But if something happens to my grandma, like, there's no guarantee that you're gonna get your house that you built because you don't own it legally. My uncle Elf, the crazy one, decided that, you know, nobody, because all of my uncles live in New York, nobody really goes to Mexico. We used to go like yearly, that's why we built our house, but lately we just haven't been going, and I guess my uncles as well haven't been going. So for some reason my uncle, the cranky one, decided that, you know, he was over it and didn't like my uncle, his brother, who also lived with him. We'll call him Water because I'm staring at my water bottle. He didn't like his brother Water, so he got in a fight with his brother. And I think at this time my sister was also there when this fight happened. I was not there. I think she was probably maybe 10 years old when this happened.
The last time I went, Uncle decided to punch our other uncle, like start a fight.
But this is in the past, right?
This is in the past. Okay, this is what happened 5 years ago before. My dad wasn't there, and it was kind of just me and my mom. We were kind of alone, and then after that, I had like this really sad moment. It's kind of embarrassing now that I think about it. But in my grandma's kitchen, when like nobody was there, and like my parents were all talking outside about what they were gonna do next, I was kind of praying in the kitchen. I'm like, please let me survive and let me go home. It was kind of sad, and then like it kind of echoed there. It was kind of like a core memory, you know. So I was like, yeah, I don't want to go back. Like, I'll go to Cancun, I'll go to Puerto Vallarta, but I don't really want to go back to that rancho, you know. It's not really like hometown. Yeah, I don't really want to go to my mom's hometown because it's not really fun memories, you know. Not like how they were before with all my cousins and playing.
But yeah, he beat up his brother Water. Then he beat up his wife as well. My uncle Water, his wife, he kicked her. So then they had to move because they didn't feel safe. My uncle Water and his wife, they moved. They don't even live there. They have their own house in my grandpa's land, but he left because my uncle pretty much threatened them. Like, he was beating up my uncle's wife, a man beating up a woman, like he was kicking her on the floor. But my grandma was living in another uncle's house. So there's my uncle, the mean one, Elf. Then there's Water. And then there's my other uncle. We'll call him Nick, because I saw the naughty palette and I wasn't going to call him naughty. But Nick for, you know, whatever. Anyways, so Nick. And that's where my grandma was staying. And she does have a visa, so she technically comes and stays with my uncles in New York, back and forth. So she'll live a little bit here, and then she'll go to Mexico, and then she's just kind of back and forth. My uncle Nick does have cameras in his house, so, you know, we kind of are keeping an eye on him, you know, and my grandma mostly. So again, there's my uncle Elf, Water, and Nick's house. And it's kind of like a little row, and then there's another house. We'll call him Cheeto, my uncle Cheeto's house. And then my mom's house is right underneath what's his name, Water's house. So is it Water? No, Elf. So my uncle Elf's house is right here on top, and then there's like a little road, and then my mom's house is right underneath. So he pretty much ended up feeling, or I guess he does feel like he's the owner, because nobody lives there. None of his brothers are there. Like, his one brother that actually was there, he's not there anymore. My grandma, she comes and goes, you know. She mostly stays in New York or Florida, wherever my aunts are from. So yeah, that's kind of like that background with them. I'm gonna use this Dewy Skin Primer, and I'm gonna use my Huda Beauty. This is in the shade Latte, and I like mixing them together. Like, I add a little dot, and I like mixing it together only because I feel like it gives me like a more natural dewy skin. So I'm mixing the primer and the foundation together. I wanted to show you guys this other tip that I've been using, but I got distracted because my sister came in. You want to go in with your sponge, and then you want to pat your brush like this. So then when you put it on your face, the foundation doesn't soak up all your makeup. If you apply foundation on your face and you kind of just do what I did, just like put it on specific spots, and then you go in with your foundation is going to absorb most of that product in that specific area, and it's not going to blend in as much. But if you blend it out like how I did, and then you go in and blend it with your foundation, with your sponge, you do get a little bit better coverage. Because sometimes if I add, especially with that foundation, with the Huda one, if I apply it just like little chunks or whatever, and then I go in to blend it, like it for some reason it feels like it doesn't want to move. Anyway, so back to our story. So that's the story about my uncle so far. I think I kind of described his personality a bit. So I'm using my powder. So my parents had gone to Mexico. So this June 2022, they went to Mexico and it was fine. It was just them two. They went for a week. I did ask them about like my uncle, and they were pretty much just saying that they try not to get in his way, like there was no communication. My dad actually ended up giving my uncle's kid, what was his name, Elf, my uncle's kid's Elf, $100. Yeah, they only have one kid together, him and his wife. So my mom really wanted to fix her house in Mexico, like not just the house but also their property, I guess, like inside and out, try to get water running and all that. For December, my mom's like, okay, I want to go to Mexico again, like I had so much fun, I want to work in a house, I want to get to, you know, see my brother, the one that actually likes me, and his family, pretty much my aunt, the one that got pretty much kicked from my uncle Elf. Point is, my mom wanted to go for the whole month. She ended up going for, technically, like she went a week, 2 weeks earlier than my brother and sister, than my dad and my sister. Once my sister bought her ticket and they were gonna go with my dad, it was kind of like set, like okay, they're leaving. So they ended up leaving on Friday. I was a little sad because it would be like my first year like not having my parents for like Christmas. So I told my boyfriend, I was like, oh, it kind of sucks, like this is my first, the mill guy's here, this is my first Christmas ever like without having my parents around. I'm like, what am I gonna do? I was like, my brother might end up leaving to go hang out with his friends. Saturday morning, me and him hung out, and he's like, why don't we like go on a trip? I was like, where are we gonna go? Like, where are we gonna go? And he's like, let's go to Disneyland. And that had been one day after my sister left. So they left on Friday. We planned it on Saturday morning. We got the tickets and all of that. My parents hadn't called me, they hadn't texted me, and I just kind of assumed like, oh, they're just, you know, they just got there, like they're probably settling in. I was like, I'll call them Sunday morning and let them know that I'm gonna be going to Disneyland. So what ended up happening is that my sister texted me on Sunday morning, and I was doing my makeup, I was getting ready to go, and I see a message and I look at it at my phone and it says sister, and I'm like, oh yay, she finally got Wi-Fi. And then it just kept beeping and beeping and beeping, and then I clicked on it and it said Sunday around 11:27. I was getting ready and she sends me a message, Nancy, I'm really scared, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I love you guys, and a cookie. And I was just like, and then she also sent an audio, and in the audio she was like crying, pretty much saying the same thing, like, oh my god, like I don't know what's happening. And I'm like, she's from Mexico, like what do you, like what happened? Did she even make it to my mom? Did something happen to them on the way from like the airport to my mom's house or to meet my mom? Like I didn't know what was going on. I started freaking out and I started texting her, and I think she says like right after like, oh, it's fine now. And then in my head I'm just like, maybe somebody took her phone and they're just pretending, because I was like, what happened? She's like, I don't have any service right now, but we're okay, I finally got Wi-Fi. And I'm like, why are you crying? And then that's when she told me, because in my head I'm like, okay, maybe somebody had took her phone, and then they're just like lying and saying that, like nothing happened. So then I call her, and I think it's the first time I didn't go through, and then I call her again and I'm like freaking out, I'm like crying, I don't know what the hell is going on. And then she eventually answers the phone, and I talk to her and I hear her voice, and I'm just like, okay, like I can calm down a little bit. But I'm like literally walking around the house, I was like trying to like talk to her, and in my head I'm just like panicking, just doing this the whole time, just like talking to her, just like doing this. I just remember walking around my house just like patting myself, and I'm like, what am I doing, like, right? it was just kind of like my anxiety, I guess, kicked in.
You can't blame me for what I did since I was so scared in that moment. But I kind of thought it was like, that's it. Like, I'm not going to be able to say goodbye to anyone. I'm not going to be able to, like, tell people that I love them. So I was like, okay, let me send messages out. Like, there was no Wi-Fi at the house. There was no service, no Wi-Fi. So I just sent those messages as like a, what's it called? Like at least I sent it, you know? Like, at least I did something. So I sent those out to Nancy, a few of my friends, and I think that's it.
And then I talked to her, I called my mom, and at the moment, yeah, they were fine, they were scared. What ended up happening is that my uncle, Elf, decided that he wanted to scare my parents and mostly kind of fight my dad. So he sent some people over to pretty much threaten my parents.
Okay, so the day we get there, early in the morning, it was like 8 o'clock, everyone was just waking up. I got to meet my cousins, at least for a day. It was really fun. We like went to go see my uncles, you know, classic Mexico stuff, you know. Then the evening came, I took a nap because I was jet lagged or whatever. And during that nap, I woke up to my parents like frantically, like not knowing what to do, and I was kind of confused. But they're like, oh, Uncle Water like just threatened us over like a water pump or something. And I was still groggy, I didn't know what was going on. And they're like, oh, what should we do? Should we go to my aunt's house, or should we just stay here? Like, what should we do? They were really confused, and my dad didn't have a good feeling. Like, he didn't want to stay at the house. He didn't feel comfortable. And my mom, like, she didn't feel comfortable that my dad didn't feel comfortable, and I didn't feel comfortable that nobody felt comfortable. So we went to the lady who runs the house when we're not there, and she's like, oh, don't worry, he's not going to do anything. Like, don't worry, he's not the type, he's such a coward. And I hate when people say that now, because, like, they will always say that. Like, even when he did do something and he does do stuff, they're like, oh, don't worry, he won't do anything. I mean, but obviously he does do stuff. She was saying that, and then my dad's like, I don't know, maybe we should go check with my other aunt. And my mom's like, no, I don't want to worry her. So we didn't do that, which is probably what we should have done. Then we go to this guy's house, and he says the same things. Don't worry about it. You stay there. You go to sleep in your own house. Who cares? Like, this guy's not going to do anything. And if he does do something, we'll get him, right? So then we go to sleep in the house. And at 9:34, we'll always remember because I checked my phone right as I heard the knocking. So there's this guy knocking and pounding at the door. My mom wakes up like in a cold sweat. And this guy's like yelling and screaming for my dad, or like saying like a bunch of bad words in Spanish about my dad. He's like, come out here. Like, how are you the woman more courageous than your husband? And my mom kept screaming like, oh, he's not here. Like, it's just me and my daughter. So the guys were like, we're not gonna hurt you. Don't you worry about it. Or something. Like, tell your husband to come over here. And my mom, she says that she thought the guy had a gun, but we couldn't tell because it was really dark. And then also, what scared me more is that our safety net was that we had a gate. But that gate was broken into, and he was like right at our front door. Like, he was right there. Like, one push or one shove at the door and he's in. So then he keeps threatening my mom, but he says something about the water pump, and he says something about the money. So automatically we knew Uncle called people over to go threaten us or do something to us, because we had just gotten it the day before. Like I said, my mom had been there a week before, but she hadn't been staying in the house. She had been staying with my aunt, and kind of no one knew we were here until that day. So we knew it had to be my uncle. That's the day that we had a fight with him. It was 100% him, because they were talking about the pump. They were talking about his money. And then my mom said, I can't believe my own brother would do this to me. And then he kind of stayed quiet after that. And that's kind of like a little bit after, that's when they left. Then that whole night, none of us slept. My dad was super tired from the plane, so he tried to drift off. The next morning, with no sleep at all, we got out of there. And he was still at his house, but we kind of just waited for him to leave. But then my mom thought, like, you know what, let's just give him the money, maybe he'll leave us alone. But as soon as...
This would have been a bad mistake.
That would have been terrible, because, like, What?
He knows that
he can do that and get money. But my mom thought like, okay, we give him the money, he stops coming after us and we can leave. But when she went outside and had the money with her, he was a coward. So as soon as he saw us, he like ran away in his truck, right? And in that moment when they left, that's when I sent like a voice memo to Nancy. It was kind of, you know, because I was all alone in the house. The door was wide open. It was kind of like my biggest fear right there. Like, door wide open, alone in this place that like, show it's already risky there.
I got these messages. I was freaking out. Like, imagine you know that your parents and your family are in Mexico, and when my sister sent me those messages, I literally 100% thought that was happening in that moment. I didn't know that it had happened like the night before, on Saturday night when they first got there.
We went to the lady who takes care of the house again. We told her what happened, and they were shocked. Her and the neighbor next door to her decided, hey, let's get you out of here. We'll take you in a different car. But then there was this lady who was my uncle's suegra, which is like his mother-in-law, and she has like legal ties or something. So we went to her house to ask for advice, and also her house has Wi-Fi, so all those messages that I sent that Nancy sent. When I talked to Nancy, told her we're all good, talked to my friends, told them we're all good, told everyone that cares about what happened to us that we're good, and that we'd be leaving in a few days.
Once I talked to my mom and like they told me they were fine, they were at somebody's house, that they were just kind of trying to figure out what's going on, if they were going to leave and blah blah. And I did feel a little bit better, but it's still kind of like I'm not going to feel 100% safe until they're back home. After that, a couple of days passed and my mom did tell me that they were going to be leaving, and she's like, I'll call you once we're at the airport. I think the day before I left to Disney, I did tell her, and she's like, it's fine, like don't worry about it, like just go have fun. We'll call you once we get at the airport. Called her the next day, and she pretty much told me that they are having a vacation. They went down to Puerto Vallarta. Okay, where did we leave off? My camera died, so I don't remember where I left off, so I'm just gonna give you a little recap. My crazy uncle decided to scare my parents and sent some guys to threaten them. My parents got scared, left, and then during this time, I believe I was going to be going to Disneyland. I think 3 days after the actual incident happened is when my parents finally got tickets to leave. They told me afterwards that they were going to be heading to Puerto Vallarta. I just, you know, I cannot imagine something like that. All I can tell you guys is like my fear that I felt when I got those messages, when I got the voicemail, and it scared me. And then she didn't text me, call me. They just told me they were driving. They'll call me once they get to the airport. So I ended up calling her like at night, and that's when she told me that she was on her way to Puerto Vallarta with my dad and my sister, and they were just going to try to spend some couple of days there just to, you know, at least enjoy their vacation. And I'm not gonna lie, like I was still worried. I would message my sister, and sometimes the phone, the connection wouldn't go through. So if there was no Wi-Fi, there was no way for her to get the message. So I would just kind of like be in panic mode until she replied, and then eventually, you know, she would reply. And I'd be like, hey, like, everything okay? She'd be like, oh yeah, we were at the pool, like, blah, blah, blah. We're at the beach, or, you know, whatever. And then I would feel better. And then I'm like, okay, message me the next day. And, like, she wouldn't message me. And I would just be, like, try to call my mom. And then I also didn't want to be, like, ruining their vacation, because I know they were scared and I was scared. So I just didn't feel calm, like, the whole time that I was there. I would look at my phone and I'm like, you know, I had this fear that I was gonna get like another crying message of my sister. I think my mom told me that they ended up coming back Christmas Eve at night, and then I was back home Christmas Day. I'm pretty sure my uncle has no remorse at all. I don't know why he became that way. I feel like he must have always been like that. I feel like a little bit is just like jealousy. When I was at Disneyland, I did try to like enjoy myself. I did try vlogging. That went horrible. I do have some like clips that I got, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't want to vlog. I wanted to vlog, but I had nothing really to like vlog. It's not that I had a horrible time, it's just that it was, I just wanted to focus on having fun and just trying to distract myself. And I felt like vlogging was not gonna do that. And again, I was just not really in the mood to like really record. Yeah, this is the makeup look. I hope you guys enjoyed my video, and if you did, go ahead and like, and if you are new, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.